Hello everyone! Today we are going to be talking about using context clues to identify difficult words in passages so that we can better understand that whole passage. The article we are going to be using sentences from today comes from a Time magazine article that was written in 2015. I selected this article because it is something that goes along with the background information on the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. It also presents an interesting perspective on a topic I had never heard of before I began teaching this novel. This article and topic could also be a part of a collaborative unit between an American history class and an English class if they were taught concurrently. So, what are context clues? According to Laura Robb in Teaching Reading and Social Studies, Science, and Math, context clues are used to figure out the meanings of unfamiliar words. Context clues turn us, as the reader, into detectives because we read to look for the clues left behind by other words so that those clues can help us discover what unfamiliar words mean. Context clues are the words in the sentence or surrounding sentences that give us the information we need to make educated guesses about what an unfamiliar word in a passage means. We can also employ our knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, and roots along with context clues to better our understandings. While we are reading, you could use a chart like the one attached to help guide your thinking about the context clues. In the first column, you would place the word you are trying to decipher. In the second column, you will place any clues you find from the text. In the third column, you will write the definition of a word based on the context clues you used. This is not required, but it could be helpful if you are struggling to locate and draw conclusions based on the clues. If needed, pause the video to reflect on each example before you move forward. The great part about video lessons is that you can replay and pause as much as you need, which most classroom teachers aren't going to be too fond of. Now, let's get down to business. Let's look at the second paragraph of this article to see how context clues are used. Living in Chicago, she, Mamie Till, explained at the trial of his murderers. He didn't know. The teenager was abducted. What does that word mean? The teenager was abducted? Let me keep reading to see if there are any more clues. The teenager was abducted at gunpoint from his great-uncle's home on this day, August 28, 60 years ago, by two white men who accused him of having whistled at a white woman in a grocery store. His body was found in the Tallahatchie River 3 days later. He had been brutally beaten and shot in the head. Well, if he was abducted from his uncle's house, that tells me it means it's some kind of removal or leaving. The fact that it was by two men in return for whistling at a woman, and he ended up dead, I also know that this is not a positive word. Based on the context, I know that the word abducted means taken from or removed from forcefully. Now, several of you probably already knew what this word meant, but it's a good example of how we use context clues to help us determine the meanings of words, and it's also nice that it could have been familiar. Now, let's try another word that you might not be as familiar with. This comes from the second paragraph of the article as well. An all-white jury acquitted. Wait, what? Let's read it all the way to the end of the sentence. An all-white jury acquitted the defendants, the husband and brother-in-law of the woman who complained about Till, who later confessed to the killing. For this sentence, I'm going to pull on prior knowledge that I have and combine it with the clues here. I know from watching law-based TV shows that juries determine the guilt or innocence of a person on trial. So I know what it means. They either found them guilty or innocent. That much information I can get from the clue of an all-white jury. Now, to determine which side it means, I have to look at what comes after the word. It says later they confessed to the killing. If they had been found guilty, would they have wanted to confess? I don't think so. Generally, in the TV shows, people keep their mouths closed when they have been found guilty, because they could appeal. But if they're declared innocent, they get away with it even if they did do it. Apparently, acquitted must mean that the jury found the men innocent. The rest of this paragraph helps me believe that too. In the rest of the sentence from above, we encounter another difficult word, unremorseful. We can use the context clues and our knowledge of word parts to help us with this word. The men later confessed to the killing in a raw, unremorseful interview with Look magazine. One said that they had intended only to beat the teen, but decided to kill him when he showed no fear and refused to grovel. That is the sentence from the article. We can first break this word down a bit. We know the prefix un means not. We already know that. We also know that the suffix full means characterized by. So we already have half the word taken care of. Not characterized by remorse, because we're left with the base word remorse. Now we may not know what remorse means, so we have to use our word part clues. So now that we've used our word part clues, we have to use our context clues. So our context clues can help us. The men are admitting to killing these teenagers for nothing more than not being afraid of them and for not begging for his life. What can that tell us about the word unremorseful? If they were so willing to kill him over something so simple, they really must not care. The passage also notes that they talk about it in a raw way. This tells me that it was not a pleasant or polite interview. Unremorseful must mean that they were not characterized by caring what they did. Now, I've given you 3 examples. It's your turn to try. You read this paragraph from the article and determine what the word catalyst might mean in this context. The paragraph reads, because Milam and his accomplice had already been tried once for Till's murder, the public confession did not yield more charges. But it provoked national outrage and became as powerful a catalyst in the civil rights movement as Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her bus seat just a few months later. As the Los Angeles Times later put it, if Rosa Parks showed the potential of defiance, some historians say Emmett Till's death warned of a bleak future without it. Now, pause the video here until you've practiced finding context clues for the word catalyst. Now, for the word catalyst, we must look at the information presented here. I know that the word provoked means to bother or irritate. For instance, don't provoke a sleeping bear. You know you wouldn't want to mess with a sleeping bear. The adjective powerful also lets me know that it is important in the civil rights movement. But the most important clue here, I think, is the comparison to Rosa Parks, who we've all heard about before. We know her actions led to many protests and boycotts, which helps me understand Till's murder must have been the start of something like Parks' actions were as well. All of these clues and my prior knowledge help me to guess that catalyst means something that starts or speeds up an event. That's context clues in a nutshell. Happy reading!